Hello, UCAR. Peter Christensen here, coming to you from the CEO's desk. Gonna talk today. It's the week leading up to the 4th of July, so we're gonna talk about freedom. Freedom. That was actually a movie about a Scottish guy, but we're gonna talk about good old American freedom today. Why American? Because it's American law we're talking about. Because we're in Utah, which is in America. So I get asked this a lot lately because there are some pretty extreme contract terms floating around out there, whether it's from a builder, whether it's just a desperate buyer, a demanding seller, whatever the case may be. So I'll get asked this question of how can we allow this party to put that in a contract? How can we allow those terms to be in a contract? And I guess sometimes my answer may shock people of, can that be in there? And most of the time, yes, it can. If the parties agree to it, yeah, sure. So let's talk about that. In the United States and in Utah, we enjoy this doctrine of freedom to contract. Like, we can contract for a lot of different things, and the law basically says we're going to let you, within limits, certain limits, we're going to let you contract however you want for whatever terms you want, and we're not going to interfere. As a matter of fact, we'll uphold contracts. And so there's a few exceptions to that, and formation's one of them. So they want to make sure a contract makes sense. So essential elements, price, definite terms, parties, time frames, that kind of stuff. Some of those they'll deem essential terms and say you have to have at least this much of a framework. It has to be for a legal purpose. It can't be illegal, the contract. So that's a different problem there. And then capacity. So parties have to have the capacity. That's why you can't do contracts with minors under most circumstances, because they lack the capacity to bind themselves in a contract. And then some have to be in writing. The law has deemed certain contractual relationships to be too important to leave to verbal, the ability to make a verbal contract. And real estate purchases happens to be one of those, and they fall under what we call the statute of frauds. But other than that, and there's very few exceptions where the law interferes with our ability to contract with each other. And one thing I remember learning in law school was the law doesn't protect you from a bad deal. So you can actually write up contracts that are really dumb, really one-sided, really not a good deal. And most of the time, the law won't interfere with that. It'll say you guys can do this if you are all in agreement and no one's being tricked or manipulated or coerced, then we're going to uphold the contract. The one exception is if it shocks the conscience of the court. I always thought that was a fun idea. Shock the conscience. I picture everyone, the judge, whoa, no way. I don't know. Never seen that happen. But if it shocks the conscience of the court, it's a super, super high standard. I mean, it has to be such a bad deal that the court says, my goodness, no one in their right mind would have agreed to these terms. It shocks the conscience of the court. Very rarely applied. So, these get out of the contract clauses, these raise the price, these waiving any contingencies, most likely, most courts will uphold those because of that freedom of contract kind of doctrine in the United States. So we're pretty protected, aren't we, in this nation? It seems like we don't want to hold a lot of people accountable. Well, in contracts, we try to hold people accountable and say, hey, you made the deal. Let's hold you to it. And so don't count on their, I guess what I'm trying to say is we have a lot of safety nets in this country, and maybe we're getting accustomed to those, but don't look for a safety net in a contract to say, well, I didn't realize I was making such a bad deal. Understand what deal you're getting into, what your clients are getting into, and make sure everyone understands, because it's likely you should not count on the court undoing it. A court is likely to say, as long as it was legal and legally formed, then we're going to hold everyone to the terms of that contract. Hopefully that makes sense. This is not specific legal advice. This is general legal information only. If you need specific legal advice, please contact your attorney. Thanks for tuning in.